Pardon. Hey, meeting to order, please. We're running a little bit late. The last committee was in here and ran over actually 10 minutes. Now we're late. So we will try to get what we can get through today. Senator Hickman, how about if you do the invocation for us here?
Let us pray. Lord God, we know you're in our presence, Lord, and we thank you for that, Lord. We ask you to please provide us with wisdom, moderation, courage, Lord, as we review these bills. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
All right. Representative Chokus, if you want to come forward. Yes, sir. I think your bill, I don't want to jinx you, but it seems fairly straightforward. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you today House Bill 808. It's a substitute LC 442725S.
Get a little closer to the mic if you
yes,
would.
Sir. LC 442725S. And this measure deals with tangible personal property. Tangible personal property is the taxes that we have to pay on personal property, is equipment, inventory, and things like that. And currently, the exemption starts at $7,500 and above, and that exemption amount has not been raised in quite a few years. And just to keep up with inflation, we, in this bill, raises that exemption from $7,500 to $20,000, and that's it'll be on a ballot to be approved. And that's
Let's make sure we've got the right LC number on that, because I've got 500782S. Is that
okay? I stand corrected. Thank you.
okay?
Yes.
So the only change in your bill is going from 7,500 to 20,000.
That's correct.
You, how long ago was it 7,500 put
It
in
was
there?
approximately 20 years ago.
Okay. So it hasn't changed since then. I know there was originally looking at a little bit higher amount, and I think there's been some compromises came with that. I think ACCG is okay with this. Where's ACCG at?
There.
Neutral, okay. Okay. Any questions from the committee?
More of a comment. Thank you for doing this. This is going to be a huge help to our small businesses, so I appreciate your work on it. At the appropriate time, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Estevez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question about the impact is on local government, I'm assuming. And is there any estimate on what the impact would be?
No, sir, I don't have an estimate on what the impact would be on local governments, but as you heard from ACCG, they're neutral on this issue.
Senator Hickman.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for bringing this bill. Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment. Going forward on bills like this, I'd like for, instead of just pulling a number out there and say 20,000, 10,000, I'd like for us to have some type of mechanism that's based upon a inflationary, and I understand that, but inflation from this time to this time, rather than just seem like we always up here go from $9 to $10 or $10 to $12 without any kind of reasoning behind it. It just increases. So that's just my comment going forward. It
And
would
then
make more.
that's why I was asking about the 20,000.
no,
I mean, 20 years ago, because
I knew that. Yeah.
that seems somewhat equivalent with what
Yeah.
inflation would be.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
Senator Albers, I don't see any other questions. You said you want to make a motion?
Motion to pass the committee sub for House Bill 808 LC 500782S.
All right, we've got a second from Senator Hodges. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, one opposed. Motion carries. Who's your sponsor?
I was thinking that Senator Albers, if you would carry it.
Be my pleasure.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee.
thanks. We're going to go on. I know we tried to get Representative Perkle last time, and is he here?
Yes, sir.
You're not a no-show this time?
No, sir.
Okay, well, if you want to come on up, well,
You are so very kind not to hold a grudge. for, and I tried my best to get here last time. I apologize. I bring for your consideration, if I could go and start.
Yeah,
Would that be
give us the
okay?
LC number, and
Uh,
how you
LC
do better
50.
than the last guy did, so.
Yes, sir. This is the only one that I have, so I hope this is right. LC
Okay.
500702S.
Yeah,
This is HB 871. So, some counties interpret Georgia code as it relates to the surviving spouse and minor children of a disabled veteran. That the surviving spouse and minor children must live in the same home that they were living in when the disabled veteran died. And we know that life happens, and if I had 5 acres and a big house, and I can't look after 5 acres and a big house, that the surviving spouse might move to a different house to claim the homestead exemption. Some counties have interpreted the statute as saying that you can only live in the same county that you were residing in when the disabled veteran passed. This bill merely clarifies the portability of the homestead exemption for the surviving spouse and minor children of a disabled veteran. It does require a 2/3 of the House and Senate, and there will be a ballot question, statewide referendum. That's the
All
bill.
right. Questions of the committee? And, again, I'll look to see, ACCG, any stance on this.
Not a handle with ACCG, we're neutral on this bill as well.
Okay. Maybe begrudgingly so, but it sounded neutral. So, no, I don't think it's a huge impact, but.
No, I think there is wholehearted support for our disabled veteran surviving spouses.
All right, if there's not any questions, we'll entertain a motion. Got a motion from Senator Avatarte, second from Senator Estevez. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion
Senator
carries.
Payne.
Senator Chuck Payne will be
Yes, sir.
carrying this, okay?
Yes, sir.
Our former secretary of this committee, but he didn't make it on they moved him to a different committee this time, so he used to be with us. All right, Representative Camp, are you here? You want to come forward? So give us your LC number and
Sure. I've got House Bill 814, and the LC number is 500721S.
okay.
All right,
Go
thank
ahead.
you so much for hearing me today. This is a neat bill to me because the amount of money that's going to be coming into our state and that's already come into our state regarding rural broadband, areas of our state are going to dry up and really have a lot of economic strife in the coming years if rural broadband is not deployed. And we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with the funding that's coming in. This bill simply states that the entities that are subject to income tax would not be held to income tax on money from the BEAD program and also ARPA. We do have an estimate on this. As you know, on ARPA, a lot of the funds went to EMCs, which are already not liable for income tax in our state. So there was no tax liability with this anyway on that. But there were several companies that were beholden to income tax. The estimate we have on this, because we don't know exactly how many entities will be non-taxable entities going forward with the BEAD program, because there is a bid process involved. So every person in the state of Georgia will have access to high-speed internet. Because of that, we have an estimate between 72 million on a low assumption and 102 million on a high assumption.
Say that again. We were looking at something over here. Give me the numbers
I
again.
apologize, of
No,
course.
I
These
got-
are assumptions because
Yeah.
we don't know at this point if it's going to be non-taxable entities
Mm-hmm.
that win the bids for this, or if it's going to be taxable entities. In my district, for example, Connexon and Highline are taxable entities, whereas the EMCs who have taken on this are non-taxable. But a low assumption is 72 million. A high assumption is 102 million. But again, these are unanticipated funds that are coming into the state for the most part. So this is what we're asking to do. Basically, for every $1 million that comes into the state, it's going to give another 3 miles of high-speed fiber on the road. So that could be very substantial, given the fact it's $1.3 billion.
So two things on it. One, because the bill has changed from the original.
Yes.
I've tried to get an updated fiscal note, and I was hoping to have it today. I don't have it yet, so we're trying to get that. And then the other item would be, this goes back to January 1st, 2022, so it's retroactive. And by being retroactive, and I think we've had a conversation on this,
We have, and
that it makes it that the state would be paying interest retroactive of, I believe the going rate's 10.5%, and I'm not really
Yeah.
interested in the state paying interest.
well, and I'm not either. And I had the opportunity to sit down with the Department of Revenue, and Austin Gibbons is here today with us. If it would be the will of the committee, we would like to add an amendment that says something to the effect of no interest shall be paid on amended returns that utilize this tax exemption retroactively.
Okay. We can entertain amendments on that. Senator Albers, your light was flashing here.
I actually had two questions. You started to address one. I thought it'd just be easy just to make the act effective on 2024, not necessarily go backwards. But first off, I appreciate what you're bringing forward, because if we're giving people what is tax money and we're taxing tax money, it does seem duplicative. For the ARPA funds that are coming down, are they paying the federal taxes and we're just going to exempt the Georgia taxes?
That is correct. There has been talk in Washington of exempting the funds going forward, but we are a lot more productive in the state of Georgia than they are. So the only thing we can enact here is the state taxes, and so that's what's being addressed.
All right, thank you.
All right, Senator Hickman.
Senator Albert, I think the way I think it worked, the federal will pay the tax, they'll be taxed, but because federal recognizes bonus depreciation, a lot of that can be ate up by depreciation, whereas the state of Georgia does not recognize that, so they have to spread it out over a long period of time. That's the difference.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a couple of people that want to speak on this, so we'll probably try to hold it just a couple of minutes here with all we're trying to get through here. But Rhonda Chatham first, I believe, with GTBA, if you want to come up.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Chatham, and I'm the Executive Director of the GTBA. Thank you to the committee for hearing this bill. We are in support of the bill. It definitely would help our members that are the rural community providers that are providing broadband. It definitely would help them to stretch the dollars, and we just appreciate the committee entertaining it. And I'll take any questions if you have any specific questions. And Chairman Hufstetler, Jason Smith is signed up, and that's just if you need, expert provider testimony. He's one of our providers that's here today.
Okay, well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? We're not sure how to do the retro in this bill, talking to Ledge Council, so
The way I understood it was that the law is not actually retroactive. It's the law. The change happens, and I don't have the bill right in front of me, but the applicability of it would go back since ARPA was actually that ARPA program came through in 2021, and some of the funds were drawn in 2022. So it would just allow them to be able to amend the ones that had already paid tax on it. It would allow them to be able to amend. So my understanding is that the law would take effect as of July 1, 2024, but the applicability of it would go back to 2022. But obviously, there's a lot more people here that would understand that more than me. So however the committee sees fit on that.
And certainly the intent of the bill was not for the state to have any liability.
Right.
Is regarding interest paid on returns that are amended.
okay. Senator Albers.
I'm going to actually ask the Appropriations Chairman a question. Not knowing what this impact is of the budget, I mean, this is literally going to take dollars out of the budget if we were going to give this money back that we are not accounting for. Is that not accurate? If we went retroactive?
I'll tell you, this room's been bad to me today. I was in here for ag, and they asked me a question, and I was in here again. I need to quit coming to this room. Where I'd feel comfortable, I don't know where, it's probably not where your members would want to be, but I'd feel comfortable taking line 16 and changing the 2022 to 2024. I don't know if that's where your members will be. We haven't talked. I know you've been by. I apologize.
I think they would be more comfortable with being able to amend because they have paid tax. I know several of ours, especially we have one that, they received a pretty large grant and they've already written an estimate of $1 million. So, I think they would feel more comfortable on those ARPA dollars if they could, but obviously, I don't know how much has been drawn down. ARPA would be the only issue, and I know that ARPA was pretty, maybe we could get with OPB and see how much has been drawn down from ARPA, because that would be the only monies we would be talking about. Our members got out ahead, and I think the EMCs as well, and they were deploying very quick, so they were getting reimbursed. But I don't know how much of ARPA has actually been reimbursed, which would then be taxable yet.
But Rhonda, the state has actually, in the past, also done grants.
Mm-hmm.
So if we collected dollars and we think that we need to do more
Right.
grants, the state can actually, which got that money, then actually give more grants anyway. So
Yeah.
it may be a lot cleaner and smarter from the state's fiscal policy to simply just say it starts in 2024. I appreciate your perspective,
Yeah.
but I think we can make people whole anyway if we want to reinvest those dollars to rural broadband.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Estevez.
I was just, before the chairman spoke, I was going to offer a competing view. Because I do think there's a fairness issue there for those who jumped out first and or took out the money as soon as there was an opportunity.
Yeah, they
And
built quick.
Those early investors would not be punished. Punish is not the right word, but would not get the benefit of those who waited around for legislation like this to pass. So I do see the fairness issue in that.
Thank you.
All right, well, with questions from Ledge Council, unless, the committee as a whole wanted to move forward with a 2024 date, then I think we've got a problem with amending this bill from what I'm hearing from Ledge Council here, that we've got to look at that, so. And I can't read everybody's minds, so we may just have to wait on this.
Well, I could offer very simply on line 15, Mr. Chairman, that after 2024, we put a period and just strike the rest of it.
Okay, but then we've got to have a motion to do that. I'm not sure parliamentary wise. Hang on just. We're still getting some questions here. We're just gonna move to the next meeting. I apologize that we can't today, but I thought there might be an amendment ready on this, so we'll have to revisit this on Monday.
Okay. I'll
Monday,
work
we're
on
an
the
hour
amendment.
earlier. It's not quite as bad, but,
Okay, well, definitely I will work on the amendment. I certainly appreciate the committee's time and consideration.
all right, thanks a lot. All right, I guess Representative Cannon now, if he's available, you want to come up and tell us about your bill, your LC number, and what you're doing here?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 1052, LC 442655S. Purpose of this bill is to provide some flexibility in the CUVA statute for non-family farm entities to give them the ability to rent farmland that is currently enrolled in CUVA. CUVA statute requires that family farms be related to each other by blood or marriage within the fourth degree of civil reckoning. But a growing number of farming operations today are unrelated individuals who have formed an LLC for liability protection and to split operating costs, and that makes them non-family farms. And a non-family farm cannot lease farmland from a CUVA qualified landowner because it would breach the landowner's covenant. So we spent a good deal of time with Ledge Council working on this, a lot of hours in that office. Spoke with local tax assessors, spoke with Richard Royal, who was the original CUVA author back in the 80s, and spoke with ACCG, spoke with the ag groups. They're all on board with us, so we got a lot of support for this. And overall, the bill incorporates all the original CUVA qualifying restrictions for eligibility, but it does allow some flexibility for the non-family farm entities. And our goal in crafting this bill was to maintain the integrity of the CUVA statute while also providing some leeway to reflect the a reality of today's farming operations. I got some folks from Georgia Agribusiness Council that might want to speak to the bill, if allowed, Mr. Chairman. And that's the bill, and I'll stand for any questions.
Well, let me first of all ask, what's your understanding on fiscal impact, state and local?
None, sir.
Okay. So wouldn't there be more land in Couva potentially under this bill, or?
It's the underlying landowner. Is it stake here? So if the underlying landowner doesn't stick to the qualifying restrictions of the original statute, then it would breach the covenant for the landowner. The landowner would lose their covenant. So it's kind of like an incentive for the landowner who has a covenant to maintain those restrictions in place.
All right, Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Representative Cannon. I'll follow up on his question first. If you didn't meet the covenants to CUVA, then you wouldn't get any more, so you would actually start paying tax on that property, would you not?
That's correct.
So technically, there could be a financial impact that did it. I love CUVA. I think it's a very important program. In my 14 years of being down here, CUVA was this. And we said, well, but you know, but if we add rodeos, that's okay. And if we add weddings, then that's okay. If we add this, it's okay. And we add this, okay. Pretty soon, we're going to have, you can do everything but still call CUVA and not pay taxes on it. And I have some concerns about that because, especially in our rural areas and local communities, we're basically taking them out of the tax digest. So I appreciate what you're bringing forward, but I do have some overriding concerns that if we keep exempting everything, there's not going to be anything left.
Yes, sir. The only exemption in this case is the entity. So again, the underlying CUVA requires that you to be a family farm, and even so, the only impact is this will be a non-family farm. So if two friends wanted to farm, if they formed a partnership, an LLC, and wanted to shield some liability or to have some split input costs for equipment or tractors or say for seed cost, they cannot rent a CUVA qualified landowner's farmland because they are not blood related to the fourth degree of civil reckoning. Even if they're still following the same, even if a farmland, a family farm owner just enrolled in CUVA leases their land to a family farm, and the non-family farm is doing the same exact thing, that non-family farm entity would breach the landowner's covenant. And that just doesn't make sense to me. This kind of streamlines the whole operation. And a growing number of farming entities is not family farms. It's, like I said, two friends who want to farm, but they can't lease land enrolled in CUVA because they would breach the underlying landowner's covenant.
I think what you're doing is reasonable. I understand the logic behind it. I'm just
Yes, sir.
pointing out that if we keep going down these paths and some of this stuff, we're
Yes,
going to
sir.
get to a point there's going to be no.
I fully understand, and that's why it was the utmost importance to maintain the integrity of CUVA. I have land in CUVA, so it's incumbent upon me to ensure that the folks that I rent to are abiding by the strict regulations in CUVA because I don't want to lose that covenant.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator Eccles.
Thank you, Representative Cannon, for the bill. I was just going to ask you, your bill doesn't change, just to verify, your bill doesn't change really anything about what is being done on the land, how that land qualifies?
Absolutely. It's just the entity. This we're trying to allow some flexibility for, the non-related to the fourth degree of civil reckoning. That's
Okay.
what we're trying to have some flexibility with.
And I think a point probably to note is in the 80s when the bill was written, a lot of farms were not LLCs.
That's correct.
And now with food safety and issues the way they are now, those farms are now operating in LLCs, and that's what's happened here in a lot of cases.
Yes, and we spoke to local tax assessors, and you're having a family farm having to put it under the individual's name to lease the land because they're not allowed to join with a friend to form an LLC to lease the land. So they're exposing themselves to liability because of this. So it's really an issue for our number one industry, and it does make sense just from the farming aspect, the way I look at it. Subject to any more questions.
Our appropriations chair, I think, has got a question.
Hey, thank you, Representative Cannon. I understand the thought of a family farm now trying to protect itself in an LLC. It doesn't bother me. My question is, and help me see, I'm sure it's in here, just point me to it. If I owned 500 acres and I had it in a CUVA and I wasn't necessarily protecting my family farm with LLC, I was going to rent to ConAgra. I don't even know if they rent land, but if they a big outfit instead, would I still be able to claim CUVA?
Your land has to meet all the strict requirements of CUVA. And once you do that, you can lease it to, you can't lease it to a non-family farm entity.
That's what I was asking. Can you point me here in your bill where it keeps me from renting to? Because I think the purpose of CUVA, I'm with you, is to protect those who are farming.
Correct.
We weren't necessarily worried about the agricultural megalithic giants.
Sure.
Help me. How would I be able to show me where it's limited to that? And I'm sure it's here. I just haven't found it yet. And if one of my colleagues finds it first, I'm just wanting to make sure.
Well, the purpose of CUVA, though, is the use of the land. So if the entity is still involved in the strict requirements for use is what we're talking about. So the person still has to match or to meet all the strict requirements of what the underlying CUVA requirement requires.
Which is that?
For the use of the land, correct.
Right. That's I'm saying. If it's what keeps me from going and renting out to ConAgra?
You possibly could. I mean, that's not an issue. But even then, the underlying landowner is still subject to the original requirements of the CUVA statute. So they can't go above 2,000 acres. It's a 10 or 15-year contract. If there's anything that goes outside of the 80% required revenue, all farm and timber products, they breached their covenant. So this is not about changing the use of the land. The land's still involved in agriculture. It's still involved in timber or whatever requirements of the CUVA statute. This is just allowing the non-family farm entity to lease land, because that's the growing trend in agriculture. Is because you've got it's not family farms anymore. It's non-family farms.
All right. Senator Hickman, I think, was next.
Yeah, just a clarification. And got 200 acres.
Yes, sir.
Planting peanuts on it. Losing my butt, so I turn around and turn it into a solar farm. Does it still qualify for CUVA?
If you put all 200 acres in there, it would terminate it.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's, even though we use the term farm, solar is not a farm.
There's a carve out, but I think if you carved out all 200 acres, it would terminate the underlying CUVA.
Okay. Our caucus chair, Senator Anavitarte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hickman kind of asked my question. So I know this is important to fruit and veggie growers and the agricultural community. My question basically is going to be, can you give a real life example of where this is playing out in Georgia? I know we're in the policy weeds right now, but give a real life example of, somebody, a farmer or somebody that, we can relate to, or the average person can relate to.
Sure. So there's, and Mike, I think Commissioner Senator Eccles can give you a couple examples in Hall County. But for example, in Colquitt County, where I'm from, again, you've got a gentleman named Heath Wetherington who is trying to lease land with a friend of mine. His name, Bo, his last name, but his name is Bo Hickey. The two of them the underlying landowner's land is in CUVA, so they qualify for the CUVA statute, and they no longer farm the areas. They rent it out to a local farmer. So these two gentlemen are having to basically put everything in their individual names to lease the land without it breaching the covenant for the underlying landowner. And again, it's an incentive for me. If I'm leasing my land, I'm no longer farming, I don't want to lose that covenant. So if there's any change in what the use of the land is, it's going to make me lose my covenant, I'm going to be aggressive and say, you can't do that. And so is the local tax assessor's office. But if you want to keep the land in agriculture, you want to keep the use and follow the statute, make sure you keep land in agriculture and keep promoting agriculture, there ought to be some flexibility given to those two guys to form an LLC to shield protection and also split their equipment costs through an LLC and have the same tax advantages that another company has doing the same kind of thing. Sure. Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions right now from the committee?
Wow.
Let me get Dante Handel up here if you could just speak from ACCG's perspective.
Thank you, Chairman Huffstetter, members of the committee, Dante Handel with ACCG. So, this is an issue that's come up in a few areas throughout the state, and our commissioners get complaints about it, and they like to help on it, but they can't without a change in the existing law. We ran this legislation past our policy council, and they voted to support this legislation. So the association is fully supportive of House Bill 1052 and appreciates Representative Cannon bringing the legislation.
All right. Any questions of Dante here? All right, we've got the Ag Council signed up, but I don't know if that's necessary or not, you know, depending on the committee. But we appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the committee, or we'll certainly entertain a motion to Senator Tillery there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Cannon, I'm Representative Cannon. I support your idea. I think I'm gonna vote against it in committee, but I want to work with you to figure out why. I even thought, could I change a period to see if I could create something we can work on. My reasoning being is the language in 63 to 65 about the member having an ownership interest only as to a limited liability company. I fully expect this to vote out of the committee. Members, please vote for it. You're not bothering me at all, and I'm not trying to convince you. But my concern is that what we would end up setting up is where what we thought we were doing, you know, I hear you what you said on CUVA to protect the purpose of the land, but I think
correct.
use of the land. But that use also included the individual smaller farmer. And so I'm worried that what we would end up with is we would end up growing the bigger farms.
Well, a landowner could do that anyway.
It may happen anyway,
you know.
right.
A landowner can do that anyway, but, you know, they could lose their, but it's still, the statute is still very restrictive for the underlying landowner. That's the key to this thing, is it's allowing some flexibility for folks that want to farm that can't because they can't form an LLC and lease land.
Right. And I don't know if it would make me feel better to put something in there in 63 or not, and I'm not asking you to do that at this point in time. I know it's finance, it'll be engrossed, can't fix it on the floor.
Yes,
So,
sir.
so how much time would you need? I mean, I don't have to call for a motion today.
I know we're at that point. I'm not gonna
But
try to.
if y'all can get any more better language out of Richard Roy, I'll let you do it. I mean,
But that's where my only issue is. It's not with the underlying purpose. My concern would be that if I am a big farm, I now split my tracts into 2,000 tracts each,
Mhm.
and I rent them back. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll even make the motion to pass and vote against it. I'm not trying
Well,
to kill the bill.
let's,
I'm fine with the bill. So.
let me think about that till the next meeting and see if there's something different we want to do on that. I don't want to hold you up, but I think there's wisdom in making sure we do this, because he's right. When it leaves here, it's engrossed. I can't amend it on the floor. We'll look at that language and see if there's anything. It may vote out exactly like it is Monday, or we may change something on there. I'm not sure. We'll look at that and see.
appreciate the chance to present. A lot
All right.
of good questions.
Thanks. All right, I believe we've got Representative Newton next. The questions get harder later in the meeting. I'm just.
I can tell, boy, the seat's still hot.
So,
Different countries, eh? I heard that. I'm glad to be with you all this morning, this afternoon, Chairman. Do want to bring you House Bill 1090, the LC number we're working off of that passed the House, LC 500761S. Just a little bit of background. Youth who've experienced foster care are often behind in school. They lack life skills, and they need adult mentors even after they've maybe, as it were, graduated from foster care at age 18. General Assembly recognized this a few years ago. Actually, it started in the Senate. I think it was Senate Bill 370 with Senator Cowsert, Huffstetler, Payne, Parent, and others. Did go and get passed. The Fostering Success Act is something that's going on now. But we've looked at it after the first couple of years and realized we can build on that foundation and possibly do a better job with this group of individuals that are so that are in such need and at a crucial time in life where the direction of their life can change dramatically if they get the right mentorship, the right support they need, the right support that all of our children are probably blessed to have. This just helps some children who've been under state custody to do that. House Bill 1090 builds on that foundation. It augments and improves the current legislation that help these aging out former foster children, help them make a successful transition to adulthood. House Bill 1090 cleans up language regarding who's eligible that are at risk that can benefit from this. It is children 16 to 18 that are still in foster care. It's children 18 and up who are former foster care children. It does add a small group of individuals that have been under state custody in a different way, nonviolent youth, justice-involved youth, which is an example in here. So it'd still be primarily foster children, but there's a lot of similarities to those children who've been involved in the juvenile justice system in a nonviolent manner that are also have been under state custody, similar to a foster child. So there was a desire to make sure we could, in parallel, help them as well. One of the areas that was noted in the implementation, the original bill said they had to be attending a higher education, which is a key part of the bill. Unfortunately, a lot of them graduate in May, and the programs may not start until July or August. So when we had attending, there was no way to help them out during those 2 or 3 months in between the start of a vocational or college program. So this changes the language, for example, and says they can be enrolled. They don't have to be attending just yet. Second thing this does, it opens up the type of entities and taxpayers that can contribute to this program. Originally, it was just income tax. We've added in House Bill 1090 the ability of insurance companies who don't pay income tax, but they pay premium taxes, for them to be able to participate in this program to help at-risk youth by these business entities. And then finally thing that we're doing in this bill is to make sure there's some strict guardrails around using the money to help the child, similar to the way we try to do with insurance and other things. We want to make sure that the benefit goes to the former foster child. So we require no more than 20%, a max of 20% that can go to administration. We want 80% of the funds that are donated, that the tax credits are received from the state for using this. We want to make abundantly clear that those have good guardrails around them, and that the benefit is truly going to these very much at-risk youth. So I'm pleased to bring for you that.
Well, what we're going to do now, and for the committee here, I'm going to say, I got a sub. Unfortunately, I didn't get it until I was in healthcare committee right before this. So we're going to probably go through it, but I'm not sure we'll act on it today. Now, I know Senator Beach has been involved in this sub. Have y'all worked together on this?
We have, and with Ledge Council has been helping us out.
In addition to that, we probably need to look at some sort of a sunset. We've got a bill after this where we're trying to make sure everything has a sunset, and I don't want to have the bill right before it be the one that doesn't. So that needs to be looked at as well too. So Senator Beach, well, let's hand out the sub, because I did just get these, and it's got a few changes in it. And
if you don't mind, I do have the former DFACS director who's here too.
Yeah, if you want to come up and talk while we're getting the sub handed out, that would be efficient.
Introduce yourself.
Get a copy of the sub, I can go through that one.
Floor is yours to give us name and.
Yes, sir. I'm Tom Rawlings, and I helped draft some of the language here. It's been my pleasure to work with Dr. Newton and a bunch of other folks, including a lot of our provider community, to get here today. I appreciate the sub. I understand it came in a little bit late. We are making a few changes here after further consultation with folks. I would say that, and I've got, I don't know if there's an LC number on what I have here. However, I'm looking at the sub. In lines 20 and 21, originally, the bill, the law as it stands, had children aged, or youth, foster youth aged 16 to 18 who are aging out. There's a program for those youth. We actually inadvertently left it, somehow it got struck. We want to make sure that those youth are in there as well, so it will be, those who are able to get these services will be foster children aged 16 through 18. And then in line 22, former foster youth up to age 25. The reason for the 25 age that a lot of folks I've talked to about is very important. A lot of times these young people who have been through foster care really don't even start college until, or vocational school until they're 20 or 21. So imagine that, they're kind of a few years behind, because the system unfortunately does not treat foster children very well. If we'll move on, the next change is in line 88, adding daily living essentials and clothing as one of the services that can be provided to these youth. The next change is in line 90. The total amount of credits available now is 20 million. We would like to up that to 30 million. If we'll go on through to line 225 and following, I think there's maybe some issues with the lineage, the way the lines are done here, but in the current version it says line 225 and then there's missing some numbers. We want to make sure, one of the biggest things that Dr. Newton wanted to bring on this bill is making sure that these services go directly to the youth as much as possible. So we want to make sure that the nonprofits that are doing this work are certifying that they in fact are retaining no more than 20% of the donations that they received through this tax credit. And I believe the final, perhaps the final change, Chairman Hufstetler, I think you may have another one, is in line 267. Somehow we struck a part about deductibility of the credit. We talked to the Department of Revenue. We understand there are some issues with that, so we simply restored that. That is the current law. I want to double check my list here.
The original bill, you're on 267, correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the original bill had that stricken, and so to me it was double dipping.
Right.
So that was a change I had requested.
Yes, sir. So we restored that. And then one more, line 50, on this select small group of youth that involved with juvenile justice, we also need to serve them, we believe, up until age 25. I believe that is all the changes. I certainly understand if y'all need to wait until Monday to vote on it, but I at least wanted to be here to answer your questions.
Let's right now then, we've got to get an LC number, which this doesn't have. We need a sunset. And but as far as the underlying bill itself, let's see if there's any questions on it from the committee at this time. I'm not seeing any, so we'll try to get this LC number put on there in a sunset, and then it'll be the will of the committee on Monday.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. We've got one more bill today. Chairman Martin, if you want to come up. I believe we only got one more, don't we? It's been a full day for all of us here. So I believe your bill comes sort of out of the tax committee work, and you know, I am remiss in that I didn't mention that the powerful House Ways and Means chairman has been sitting on the front row for our meeting here, and we appreciate him being here and shepherding his members through the process over here.
I'm trying to learn something, Mr. Chairman.
So we really appreciate the hard work he did. If he could have sent me about half as many bills, I would appreciate it a whole lot more. But anyway, we look forward to the wisdom of somebody that's probably been here longer than either one of us. Go ahead, Chairman Martin.
Well, Chairman Hufstetler, I was going to actually just do that, give you and Chairman Blackman credit for convening that group this summer. It was a pleasure to serve with you all, and you know, certainly if it pleased you in the committee, I'd welcome Chairman Blackman to be up here as he was a large part of putting this item together. That's
he's certainly welcome to be up here if you want to be here.
Completely up there. Completely up to him, but yeah, what we're seeking to do in House Bill 1181, and I have LC 500768S.
That's what we have.
And as Chairman Hufstetler so aptly described, what we're trying to do here is put some predictability and some guardrails around our tax exemptions and tax credits by putting sunsets on the exemptions and limiting carry forwards on the tax credit. An important thing to note there is these tax credits, if people have a tax credit, a piece of paper, a slip, if you will, from one of these credits, the fact that we're shortening the time that can be used going forward does not shorten what they have. If they have a previously gotten tax credit, that would have the carry forward that existed when they did that credit. But what we're trying to do with this bill is just bring some consistency about it. Many tax exemptions are in 48, I think it's 48.8, 48.38. 4883. So we're trying to do that consistency to bring that down, give everybody the opportunity, with a shorter sunset, but with a sunset to come forward on an individual basis if they have something that they wish to talk about, but an attempt to just bring some consistency to it to help with our revenue projections and the taxpayers' liability as governors. This governor and future governors put the revenue estimate together. It's a simple yet complex group of things we're trying to do. Complex in that it involves a lot of different moving parts, credits, and exemptions. Simple in that we're trying to make it consistent.
And I had a couple of phone calls of people that, this is going to kill me next year. And I said, wait a minute, you're good until January 1st, 2030 under this bill. So it's not taking anything away. It's just simply saying that, we are going to review all these on a regular basis. And so I appreciate you bringing this bill forward. I believe that's somebody else who's had a full day. Senator Cowser, is that you with the mic on there?
Me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Beach, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Martin, for bringing this forward. I wanted to ask, you went from 10 years to 5 years pretty much throughout the bill, and then in 367 you go from 5 years to 3 years on certain, I guess, tax credits for the film industry. 5 years to 3 years on line 410. Is there a reason that wouldn't be 5 years, or why you would go to 3 years?
I think we were bringing things in. I think some places, if I'm not mistaken, Senator, that we went, the places where they were 10, we went to 5. From the places they were 5, we went to 3. We tried to bring in for the revenue predictability because there is quite, I'm blank here. As the Senator said, it's been a long day. An unknown liability out there. And when I say unknown, we could calculate it, but there's a pretty substantial liability that have come together for that. So we're trying to pull that together. You realize when they don't use all these tax credits in a given year, that's a bit like a refundable tax credit that we don't give to individuals. So we're trying to shorten them up and give them the ability to use it, against their tax liability. But if they're taking it forward, or in some cases they're selling those, there's a limited time frame by which they would have to put them to use.
The only thing that I have concerns about this, Mr. Chairman, is
it doesn't affect LSU at all, Mr. Chairman.
No. But let me tell you what I do have a concern with is when Netflix comes here to do a production, sometimes they do it's a 4-year series, and if they only have a 3-year tax credit.
Now, the carry forward. What the carry forward means, once you earn the tax credit, you have 3 years to use that tax credit.
Okay.
It doesn't mean if they're doing a 4-year project, they don't. If the tax credit's available during the time for that project, they would get the tax credit. It's if they earn that tax credit in 2025 and it's paid in 2025, they would have till 2028. If they earn it in 26, they would have till 2029. I thank the gentleman for the question.
I probably misstated some things that probably made that question come up. Senator Hickman.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, isn't it also in this bill that if an existing tax credit is in place right now, there's no limit on it? It's only for credits after this bill becomes effective that has a 3-year period?
Well, yes, sir. If the tax credit itself is in existence now, which many of these are,
right.
If the tax credit has been claimed before this bill becomes effective, the old carry forward date applies.
Right.
Tax credits claimed after this date would apply the new credits.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Sir.
you can't really go retroactive on some of that. Senator Anavitarte.
But we did put language in just to ensure as much. Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, you're right.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, to either of you, just can you give background on, I know you go from no limitations to 3 years, under the definitions you're talking about as it relates to the Georgia National Guard. What's the background on that one?
Which section?
I'm actually looking at the fiscal note. It mentions Georgia.
Get your mic up if you would.
Sorry, Chairman. On page 2, just in the chart.
We don't have We don't have the fiscal note, Mr. Chairman.
Shaw, this one.
Is it a, yeah, I'm familiar with,
Okay.
with the fiscal note.
Just what's the background?
Most of those, I would think, have the sunsets included. Is that correct? So what we did with the sunsets, Senator, if I may, Chairman, the sunsets are situated for those that are under $1 million and therefore underutilized or not utilized, and they get a sunset of 5 years, so it gives them some time to let us know if they are utilizing or if they are not utilizing that particular credit or exemption.
I think the fiscal note probably, and you know, they have certain rules they do it by, assumes there's no future legislation, which there will be. But that's the underlying assumption that causes that number, because you see a bunch of zeros there, but then, and oftentimes, you know, there'll be local revenue affected, and the fiscal note won't show that either. So there's certain things that maybe aren't always clear, but that's one of them.
I think it's...
Any other questions? Senator Estevez.
I may have missed this, Mr. Chairman, but how are these? Oh,
that was close.
There you go. Quick reflex, though, Mr. Chairman.
I'm pretty
almost like Spider-Man. I was thinking Spider-Man.
I did break dance in my day, but that's been a long time ago.
Which means Cameron can do whatever a spider can.
There you go. How are all the tax credits that did not have sunsets included in this, or were they selected?
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you? I was getting it off both of you, Senator.
How were these specific credits selected? Are these all the ones that did not have shortened carryover periods and sunsets, or are these, or will there still be some out there that will not have a sunset and a shortened carryover period?
Let me answer that, and then I'll yield, of course, to the chairman. But as he said, these the exemptions, not the credits, but the exemptions were the ones that were under $1 million. If you show up on our tax expenditure report, they weren't used a great deal, and those were brought forward. That's not to say that there aren't some exemptions that do not have a sunset. An example of that is we don't collect tax on lottery tickets. That is not sunsetted. That was not clear. It was also well over $1 million. We don't pay tax on food for preparation in the home, as you state sales tax. So one of the things that came through there was food that were bought by food banks that's given to people to eat in their home. We did take that one out because we thought it was on par with the greater exemption that was given to all the Georgians when they buy their own food for preparation in the home. We felt like if that wasn't going to have a sunset, it was a bit unfair to put a sunset on food banks that were buying food to give to people to cook in their home. But for that, I believe I'm correct, Mr. Chairman, is that we did that in working with the Senate, our colleagues in the Senate, to come up with a standardized sort of set.
Great, thank you.
I'm still getting over falling out of my chair, so I don't know.
I'm still getting over being impressed by how you didn't hit the ground.
I could try to answer the question, but yeah, I think he covered it, Senator. Thank you.
Senator Rhett.
You probably answered this question, but I was just wanting to figure out how did you decide which ones would be 5 or 3 years proposed or current, or 10 years or 5 years, such as the film tax credit or land conservation?
You want me to answer that? Yeah. Well, it was really just kind of pulling back on each particular one. We have contingent liabilities that have been estimated, in the billions for the state of Georgia. I think moving forward, that gives us some, better, fiscal idea of some level of what that contingent liability might, pull back from. And so we were trying to take the ones that were longer and just move them back a little bit. For instance, one was 15 and we moved it to 10, for instance. Anybody that's been promised anything in a certain way, or anything that, anybody had some objections to, we were open to having those conversations and listened and tried to adjust accordingly.
But I think that the point is some of those are still open-ended in the past. We're not going to capture those. We've got billions sitting out there that are open-ended, but we're trying to narrow down the window that they claim the credit. Senator Albers.
Appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to pass House Bill 1181 LC 500768S.
All right, we've got a motion from Senator Albers, second from Senator Estevez. Any discussion on this further from the committee? Senator Beach is.
Just like to make a comment, and I'm all for making sure we get a good return on our investment on any tax credits. But I will say this, we're the #1 state to do business 10 years running. We got a $16 billion surplus. We got a AAA bond rating. The governor's announcing jobs every couple weeks. He's announcing major jobs. We're the fastest growing state in the country. So I do think we're doing something right. And I want to make sure we don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg by tinkering too much with some tax credits. So I've got some concerns over this.
I appreciate that, and we are doing a lot of stuff right, and we also have to keep looking at the next decade, and I think we're in a competitive environment, and I don't think we're going to do anything to hurt that. No other discussion. All those in favor? Okay.
Thanks so
Last
much.
question.
Yeah.
We're out of time.
On the film tax credit, I had understood that transferability was removed, but I'm not seeing that here. Am I missing something?
If I may, yeah, this is just dealing with the carry forward. There's other legislation that Chairman Casey Carpenter has that may be before this. I don't know if it's before this committee or the Economic Development Committee. I don't know where it was assigned.
Right, it's in this committee, but we're not dealing with that this week. All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? So we've got 2 opposed, I believe. Motion carries, or 3 opposed. Motion carries. Who's your sponsor?
Well, I would be honored if either you or Senator Albers would carry this. You were a vital part of putting this together. So either one of y'all.
You know, he had the original study committee, so I think he can continue the process. But I'll be glad to.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If he doesn't want to. All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for being here today. Meeting adjourned.